Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another spoiler review. Another Batman movie, Batman Forever. Something I haven't seen in like quite some time, but this definitely was like a turning point in in Batman's silver screen debut for quite some time. Uh, Batman Forever and Batman Robin, directed by the late great Joel Schumacher, who I think we definitely would have, a lot of people would have owed a huge apology for, given the fact that after the events of, well, it's not even events, it's just the way the studios, or at least maybe moms at the time, complained about how uh, Batman Returns turned out as very like kind of like I guess what they deemed too graphic for young audiences. They went super the other direction and try to make it just like a movie just selling toys for the most part. And to be fair, I did have like certain toys from Batman Forever, like the Batmobile from the movie, the Two Face, Riddler, and like of course the Two Face came with the coin. I really wish I would have kept, to be honest with you, but they kind of went like so far in the other direction as far as like trying to make it too kid friendly. But after some time, especially with like Batman and Robin, after some time, it's like the movie, because after especially we got like Batman Begins and Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, soon after, enough time went past where we grew, because I, I think personally, I think a fair amount of people thought like enough time went by around like Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, where it's like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, it had enough time to marinate where we have more like a appreciation being fun, dumb popcorn movies instead of just like something that earned anybody's kind of hate. Because I think at the time everybody hated these films, at least Batman and Robin more specifically. I don't think people did not hate so much for Batman Forever, mostly because it was around this time when like Jim Carrey's popularity was reaching its precipice, So it's like we give it a little bit of leeway because a lot of people was like huge Jim Carrey fans at the time. Uh, well, still are technically. I'm still a huge Jim Carrey fan. He's one of my favorite celebrities of all time, and I hope to meet him one day. It's like it'll be like a just like amazing. I can't tell you how many times I made references as a kid of a lot of his movies, like especially Ace Ventura and The Mask. And he's the one that got me to love the Riddler as I do, as one of my favorite comic book villains of all time. I owe that to Jim Carrey. He made me love the character. It's a fun character, and like I grew up to love like and appreciate the villain and his uh, mindset and like his tit for tat with Batman through the comics. Uh, so it wasn't until like I gotta say for a large swath of people up to the point of like BVS, where people understand like, oof, now we got something that's even far worse than like, at least by some cases, worse than like Batman Forever, and yeah, I want to go as far as like even worse than Batman and Robin. I wouldn't go that far, but it's like as much as people give those two movies crap, at least in great admiration to Joe Schumacher, at the very least, his movies managed to still maintain the core of what we respect and love about Batman. While unfortunately the way Snyder handled it in BVS, it seems kind of like went off a track at some point. But anyway, uh, you know, like this movie is like just like filled with freaking neon lights. I gotta tell you, uh, and somewhat in Batman and Robin as well. But we start with like uh, Batman does in his trailer shot of trying to like because it's kid friendly, so we gotta like do like some minor, well, not product placement, but obviously the way the opening of a shot of Batman in the Batcave, obviously like you mentioned, like I'll get drive through is supposed to lean into the commercial. I still remember it was like a McDonald's commercial, and that's how like it's kind of like a tie-in to like that commercial. The way they set it up, obviously, was clearly set up. Was like may I persuade to take a sandwich with you, sir? I'll get drive-through. And then I never mentioned this in like the previous Batman, like the Tim Burton ones. I should mention this now. The Jim Gordon of Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher Batman films is the most useless, I argue probably the worst part, honestly, of these Batman films, because he is the worst part and the useless version of Commissioner Gordon like I've seen. And I can't believe we accepted that at that time as like a suitable Jim Gordon. And thank God for Gary Oldman, who and Christopher Nolan, who did like a complete 180 on the character and making a competent, still fairly old, old, but not like crazy old, and he's not fat and inept. He actually handled his business as a police commissioner, and it's like God, it's like it's like rewatching these, I think he was the most glaring part of the worst aspects of those films throughout like Tim Burton and Schumacher's version of Batman. So he just pretty much just like the Lego Batman movie, which we'll get into in a couple of weeks. The fact that you just count on just Batman to handle everything. You might as well just have like a magic button just to summon Batman just to handle everything. And they, the police are just there, or at least just there for cleanup. But they, Two-Face, played by Tommy Lee Jones, is robbing the Second National Bank on the second anniversary of being caught by Batman, kind of situation. Because at the time, the whole theme of twos is like it was a big part back in the day with Two-Face, but not so much now. It's a little bit more nuanced with him. But you meet like Dr. Chase Meridian, another party, bad part in this movie, who's pretty much like just weirdly horny, in this film for Bruce Wayne and Batman. And matter of fact, the way she's groping. Matter of fact, if people complain about the way Catwoman acting towards Batman, I'm surprised nobody raised an eyebrow towards Chase Meridian, the way she was groping Batman throughout most of this film. It was super sexual. It's like weirdly sexual, and I'm surprised they didn't. Like, I don't even know if they even gave her crap over that crap. If that would have happened right now, she would have got Me Too so fast. But she plays like a psychiatrist who kind of useless in this film as a psychiatrist for the most part. There's certain things I point out that I saw in certain dialogues that I thought, okay, that did not sound inept in that particular sentence, and I'll point it out in a second. But she's pointing out an obvious thing that Batman he had to point out to her like, yeah, I already know that. Like his coin is his Achilles heel. Yeah, I know that. I fought Two Face at least quite a few times. I picked that up. And like, you just got here. I've been dealing with Two Face for quite a while. I get it. So you offering no insight to Batman that he does not already know. That's the thing that kind of like grinds my gears. But there was like a couple of things like in the movies. I better mention this now before I end up forgetting. The fact that when she talking to Bruce, later halfway through the movie about what she thinks about the psychology of Batman so far, it's like, he's kind of like a tortured soul. It's like, what kind of, she mentioned like what kind of trauma he must be going through to where he's, it seems like he's torturing himself by going out every night doing what he does, because he must be going through some kind of pain to warrant this level of self-torture in a way. And I gotta admit, that was not totally terrible of a viewpoint, but it's so few and far in between when she says certain things like that. I mean, Alfred once, mentioned how like she's lovely and wise. Wise, really? She only probably said like one or two wise things about this doggone movie. Honestly, it's not that. She's not that impressive. And like, Bruce mentions later in the film was about like something to the effect that like she's the only one that's like, understood him or whatever like that. Like, anybody serious. And I'm thinking like, Vicky Vale, because this is obviously, ducktailing off of the Burton stuff, because Burton didn't want to do what the studios wanted as far as making it super kid friendly and selling like schlocky toys. So he just jumped off the bandwagon, and so did Keaton, and Michael Goff stayed around. But it was like I was mentioning, he just like, he was very like Joel Schumacher was just like, on board, like, okay, well, do it, your ways. But he still, obviously he didn't want to make it like, just making like a whole toy commercial kind of thing. He still, God bless him, still managed to weave a story that the way he wanted in some fashion into this entire thing that the studio kind of mandated him to do. And like, God bless him, he like still managed to at least give us something that we can latch on to. But you mentioned about how, I just remember, he mentioned about how like there's nobody, anyway serious like that, like, Chase. I'm like, Vicky Vale, Selena Kyle, did you forget these women? Even if you go as far as like the, Batman anime series, got like Silver St. Cloud, and like God, there's at least a good couple of others. I can't recall off the top of my head. But it's like, he dated serious women, and Vicky Vale and Catwoman would be like the main two, and Talia al Ghul, of course, if you want to go deeper. But it's like, when's the last time anybody even brought up Chase Meridian, unless you're talking about this movie? It's the funny thing. I mentioned how like I really wish like somebody bring back Max Schreck in like in a comic, in like in the current like Batman comics or something like that. But if any, deep lore, deep cut kind of Batman character that does not deserve to come back, Dr. Chase definitely doesn't deserve to come back. Unless somebody has like a smart way of, it's kind of like they doing like currently in the comics, they bring it in like a comic book run of like the Batman 89 universe and continuing forward from where like Batman Returns left off. And I'm curious if like a smart writer like Tom King or somebody can like maybe weave into like a smart Dr. Chase Meridian into current Batman lore, and like make us like her better, and or at least show like a more competent psychiatrist the way she's supposed to have, initially would have been, instead of like a sex object, or at least a horny, glorified sex object. Anyway, Batman goes up to stop Two-Face, and like, and Tommy Lee Jones. I don't think anybody didn't initially think Tommy Lee Jones would have been like a bad choice to play Two-Face, but the thing behind the scenes that we didn't find out until much later, in a few years down the line, where like Jim Carrey was being interviewed. I don't know if it was Howard Stern or somebody, but he mentioned on set during the shooting of this movie that, like Tommy Lee Jones, the blood drained from his face, and he just, looked at him, and like, I think, like he said, he hugged him. It's like, I can't sanction your buffoonery. And I was taken aback when I first heard that. I was like clearly this dude was like mighty popular for before the shooting of Batman Forever, or even before he was cast. I'm pretty sure you was privy to the fact that this man was like was blowing up big since In Living Color, and again Ace Ventura and The Mask and Liar Liar, Liar Liar came after this, but he was like blowing up in a major way, and he was by and large a comedian. And you think his stuff is buffoonery, and it's like, well, get your ass off this project. And if you can't, of course he still did the job and everything like that as he was asked to do and whatever. But it's like the utter disrespect from Tommy Lee Jones. And of course it's like he's older dude, so it's like he's an actor kind of attitude, not like pompous or anything like that, but he's certain actors get to a certain level, and it's like some of them, not all of them, get to a certain level, like Tom Cruise, where it's like that ego getting that freaking way, they get like big heads about it. And I think Tommy Lee Jones had that big head moment where it's like he had a certain way of doing his roles, and it's like you're being cast as a Batman villain. And what do you expect, given the script you probably have to read, what do you expect? And like the fact that you lay that on Jim Carrey was like, rude. And it's like, and the fact that in the end result that you behave like a utter buffoon, because he's playing the whole, because there's a particular way that we've seen like Two-Face act, like in like the anime series, or even later on when we see like Aaron Eckhart doing it in The Dark Knight. He's like, he has split personality. Doesn't mean like his other personality is like a utter buffoon. It's like more guttural rage. It's like his like hidden rage, while the other side is his normal, reserved self. You like, behave like we would have expect from like Jack Nicholson's Joker. You prancing around like a goofball, and you trying to match the energy of Jim Carrey. You didn't have to, and it's like you ran with that. That was your choice. You didn't like raise a hand to Joel and just ask. I'm pretty, because Joel's been known to be like a very, very nice person. I'm sure he would have heard you out and said, okay, you want to do like a different take on this? I'm all ears. Let's roll with it. That way you can be the serious guy towards like the goofiness of Jim Carrey to balance each other out. And I think we expect the behavior from what we've seen from Jim Carrey out of his Riddler, but what we expect from Tommy Lee Jones is something like Men in Black, but like a more like a angry Agent K. So that kind of grinds my gears because we could have gotten like a good performance from Tommy Lee Jones. He is a great actor, but the fact that the way he went at Jim Carrey liked the way he did and what the results we saw in the film, he it's on him mostly because it's like and it's kind of like grinds my gears the way he like carried on the way he did. I mean, behind the scenes. Anyway, Batman saved the security guard, and he's like a whiny security guard I've ever seen. Like a whiny, like the extras in this are like wild, man. It's like I remember watching this in the theater. No, like it didn't really strike me when I watched it in the theater. It was when I got it on VHS. I'm aging myself, but when it came out on VHS and I watched it, and and I saw that moment again, I thought to myself, God, he's so whiny. And it's like, there's a trap. Ooh, that's my hearing aid. Oh, it's boiling acid. Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. Just shut up. Let Batman do his job. God, shut up. We get it. It's boiling acid. We don't need you to look the whine at the top of your lungs. God. It's like, I understand he's panicky, but it's like, God, it's like there's panicky and there's outright just belligerent, just noise making. But he saved, the security guard. He's on like the helicopter and he's like, trying to stop Harvey. And like for some reason there's a Statue of Liberty in Gotham that, Two-Face, wired the controls of the or set up like an autopilot, to the helicopter to crash right into as he's parachuting off. And of course Batman escaped. Then you get to see like introduction of Edward Nygma, play greatly, because like a nice combination of my favorite villain and my favorite actor of all time. And like I mentioned in my Batman Returns video, as how like Selena Kyle Michelle Pfeiffer's portrayal was a lot better performed, playing like a meek character coming into her own, into a more like a confident supervillain and a little unhinged. I think like Jamie Foxx, Electro, Jim Carrey's Riddler, and Christian Wiig's Cheetah did not have that. For some reason, there's a missing ingredient that Michelle Pfeiffer managed to pull off that these three did not get, and I cannot find out for myself like what is that thing that she managed to pull off that we all loved, that these three, because they all are great actors, but she was the only one that managed to pull this kind of trope off, and these three didn't. And it's like I cannot fathom what it was. I mean, like Jim Carrey's somewhat. I think I'll let Jim Carrey slide on this a bit, but there is like a glaring like missing component that these three had, didn't have, that fell short of what they was trying to perform, or at least trying to pull out the character. And like for the life of me, I cannot fathom what that thing is. But Edward Nygma is showing off Bruce Wayne that he's like totally obsessed with, working on this box. It's pretty much like manipulating brainwaves and a bit of mind manipulation. And like the way he's saying that sentence, he doesn't hear himself like brain manipulation. You don't think that's like need to go back to the drawing board, so that won't be a factor. But he asking for funding, and it's like Bruce telling him like I can't fund this. It's like manipulating brainwaves is like just raises too many questions. And so that kind of set like a already clearly unhinged man like a little further over the edge. So I'm like, oh, like he's gonna like make him understand. He sees like the bats outside, so he had to rush out, which is just Chase trying to be pretty much grope him and playing around with the bat signal just to see him. But later at night you see like Edward further working on his prototype box, and his boss, Stickley, he was already like on his case. It's pretty much like if you ever watched the anime series, the introduction of the Mad Hatter, he had a boss who was acting just like that. It's kind of like naggy, overbearing, and Nigma just used him as a guinea pig to test out his, Nigma tech. And he, like, a surprising side effect is that he not only manipulated, the brainwaves like he intended, but a side effect is that he absorbed the knowledge of his victim, not only increasing his intellect, but he absorbed wherever secrets that that person had, which is kind of like really speaks to, like, a lot of people pointed out this is kind of ahead of his time with this kind of tech. Like even in the Batmobile or even in some James Bond films where you got like, cameras on like on inside the car where you can see behind you that we have now in certain cars. And even like he has like a watch, Bruce Wayne has a watch, it's like a risk communicator where you can actually talk with people, and they kind of got something like that. And it's like, it's weirdly ahead of its time. But of course, Ningma ended up killing his boss, and like fabricated like manipulated the cameras, is computer generated to make it seem like his boss committed suicide. And eventually, Bruce sees a riddle left at his desk. If you look at the numbers on my face, you won't find 13 anyplace. Answer is a clock. I still remember that particular riddle. That always stuck out in my head, more so than any of the other riddles that came later. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's like a little shorter compared to the others, but it's just like maybe the rhyming scheme, and I don't know. It just kind of stuck out in my mind to this day as a kid. That always stuck out, and of course, it's the most obvious answer, but a lot of people rarely like to utilize the Riddler in comics because it was so. I think some people find it hard to utilize the Riddler properly because they have to think up, pretty good riddles. And I think if you look at like the Arkham games, I think they utilize the Riddler properly, where they don't necessarily have to rely so much on riddles. It's more so on big, Saw-like, games that he put people through to figure things out. I mean, you can use something similar to that, but you can easily look up some good, riddles online to utilize if it's that hard to come up with some smart riddles. And the best riddles is something that you also have to figure out along with Batman as you're reading. And some people don't like to do that in comics, which is kind of disappointing because I think they just fall back on the Joker so much because that's so easy to a lot of people, instead of utilizing other Batman villains like Riddler, Mr. Freeze, Calendar Man, Firefly, Mad Hatter, Killer Croc, Bane. I think got like a bit of like limelight, but yeah, there's only like a few, couple of good Bane moments in comics, Nightfall being one of them. But it's like everybody got a good Joker story, like I think they're giving like the Joker a decent respite, in a past several months after the last event, because it's been like the last year or end of last year, there's been like 2 Joker events in a row, probably since like the Joker movie. There's people been like harping on Joker content a lot, and it's like oversaturating. It's pretty much, instead of like a treat with the Joker when you see him, it's a crutch, and it's tiresome. Anyway, after Riddler goes home, and it's a funny thing, he's eventually calling himself the Riddler or trying to come up with a costume, but clearly there's the Riddler character exists in this world because there's like a fortune teller box he has in his home, whereas like it's pretty much like look like a caveman dressed as the Riddler, and there's like certain images you blink and you miss. It's kind of like little Easter eggs, little like a bobblehead and stuff like that. Clearly, the Riddler exists in this universe already, and somehow he's taking up the moniker, and it's like, I don't know, would you call that lazy, or at least a poor decision on Joel's part to include certain like aesthetics that he just pretty much like having this, instead of the character coming up with it on his own, he just gets the idea for something that's presumably exists already. See at home, he's making up another riddle and leaving it, going towards the Wayne mansion and leaving it at his front gate, which prompted Bruce to go to Dr. Chase to show her these riddles. She just surmised like, yeah, he's a total wacko, just the layman's terms. But in the technical term, he's fixated on you, and the only way for him to purge the fixation is to just kill you. And then you get to see the moment when he's looking at this ink blot on the wall, and he mentions like, "Do you got a thing for bats?" Which is like a common thing. You like, there's a lot of quotable moments in this, or at least memorable moments in this film, and like one being the fact that there's like a ink blot picture on the wall, and he in a Bruce mentions, "Do you have a thing for bats?" That's an ink blot. People see what they want to see. The real question is, do you have a thing for bats? No, lady, that's a fucking bat. It's clearly a bat. It's no other thing you see beyond it being a bat. I don't know. It's because maybe he pointed it out, and that's what we're, moving forward, will always see because he said it. But even if he did not say it, I honestly would have said like, yeah, that looks like a bat. It's clearly a bat. It's a bat-shaped thing. That was like a stupid thing like to even put there, let alone say. By her, not by him. Then he eventually asked her out to the circus when the circus was still a thing in the 90s. I think it was only like a few years ago when the last circus stopped running because the whole PETA thing with the animals and all this other stuff. So, they kind of, circus stopped, a few years ago. So there's no more circus anymore. But it took it on a circus where you get to see like, the Flying Graysons, and you get to see Chris O'Donnell, who plays Robin in this. And I think I gotta say, like, unlike Detective Blake in Dark Knight Rises, who just throws in it's also the fault of Nolan, who just tosses in Robin and didn't want to call him Robin throughout the film, but just tosses in there saying like, oh, that's his real name. And I was like, God, that's so lame. This one's a little bit more accurate as far as like the Robin Dick Grayson origin. Even though, just like with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, at this point in time, Chris O'Donnell was cast and he was like already in his like late 20s, I believe. But he's supposed to be playing like kind of like a teenager. But I gotta honestly say, I like Chris O'Donnell in his role. Like he made like a great Robin. And honestly, if they're doing all this Flashpoint stuff and all these multiversal things in the DC, it'd be great. Maybe not get like, because I know like Val Kilmer is recovering from like throat cancer and everything like that. So obviously he cannot participate in like coming back as like that version of his version of Batman. And George Clooney never liked the role of Batman, or at least never wanted. I don't know. He was cast because he's like fit the role of Bruce Wayne perfectly, but like he didn't like the aspect of playing like, I don't know why he chose to be Batman. If he did not like it, maybe he just did not like it after the fact. But or at least halfway through, he just wanted the end kind of situation, maybe. But I honestly say like, you can easily get Chris O'Donnell to come back as like his version of Robin eventually grew up to be Nightwing, and because he's a lot bulkier now and like of course taller and like rugged and everything like that, he can easily pull off. Like, I love Chris O'Donnell. He will always be my Robin. and he's like this. Like I said, he's the closest that we ever gotten to like a good on screen Robin. You know, aside from like the Teen Titans TV show as like a good Robin on like an animated version, but Chris O'Donnell should easily come back at least for like a cameo or something like that as like a grown up Robin, like a grown up like a Nightwing, like because he fits the bill. I know we got like the Titans DC or at least the HBO Max TV show, and he's like Nightwing in that universe. But I honestly gotta say, like he's like Chris O'Donnell's the OG, and I really would like to see him reprise his Dick Grayson role in the aspect of Nightwing, honestly. And let me know what you guys think about Chris O'Donnell, like as like that version of Robin, and like his portrayal, like and of course follow me on my various links to the channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl, patreon.com/talkativecarl, follow me on my Twitch, twitch.tv/talkativecarl, and Twitter @talkativecarl if you want to further support the channel. But yeah, I'm curious to know what you guys think of his portrayal of Chris, as Dick Grayson, because I think he could be younger, kind of like the way Tom Holland is like Pitch Perfect Spider-Man because of his age and his closely matching the appropriate age for Spider-Man high school version especially. They could have done something like that, but he was cast for a reason, and I think because like he did like a great job acting wise, and he wasn't like a big star at that time as of yet. I'm pretty sure he done maybe like a couple of things prior to being cast as Robin, but he wasn't like a well-named person as he is now. But I honestly believe like he can easily come back for at least a little bit for like to show like a grown-up Dick Grayson, or at least taking out the mantle of Batman when kid's version kind of like I don't know, retired or whatever like that. But anyway, of course you get the tale, the origin story of Dick Grayson, being from a circus. Of course, it was like a gangster. If you watch the Batman anime series, there's a particular gangster, something Russo, who killed Robin's parents. Of course, in this version, he also had a brother, but it's neither here nor there. But it's Two-Face who was the cause of his family's death after they try to help, stop or get rid of a bomb from blowing up the whole circus with people inside. Oh, and he when Two-Face interrupted the circus, he mentioned like if Batman doesn't reveal himself, I will kill everybody in this kind of thing. And like and it's like an awesome moment from Val Kilmer's part, or at least Bruce Wayne's part, where it's like even when you see, because there's certain parts where like just like in like at least 3 instances here where it's like a good job by the director, because you think like when he's Batman's when he's in his Bruce Wayne persona, he's like inactive. He's like not like gonna be doing much, or at least don't want to show off anything to reveal himself as like he's clearly Batman because look how athletic he is or whatever like that. No, just like in like the beginning of BVS, where like Bruce Wayne is running through that season while it's being torn up while Superman's fighting Zod and everything like that. He's running through the rubble, helping people as much as he can. He's in Batman mode. He's always, just like Hulk, it's like, I am always angry. Bruce is always in Batman mode, and when he needs to be. And in this, like, earlier in the film when he's like thinking like Chase is being beaten up, but she's working on like a punching bag, he breaks down that door because he's in Batman mode at this point. He doesn't have the time to go and change and come in and burst in like full on costume. No, he's in there and like damn it all, and he's bursting in there and he's gonna do something. And just like in the circus, like while the crowd's just in an uproar, he did not hesitate to jump up and say, Harvey, I'm Batman. And it's like, I mean, like I didn't pick up on that when I was a little kid, but after this viewing and maybe like the last viewing, wherever that was, I picked up on that, and with some nuance, like, yeah, he did not care, like, especially when it comes to like realizing he was gonna blow up this entire circus full of people. And it's like, damn my secret identity. I'm going to save these people. Even if it means revealing my identity, I'm going to fucking save these people, because it's like a stark contrast to, like, in The Dark Knight when, well, even then, he was ready to turn himself in to stop the Joker's rampage until, like, Harvey, stepped in and, took the blame. But it's just like, is what you're willing, is like what is mentioned in that film, as like I brought up, and you can check out that video on the channel as well. I don't think I brought it up. It's the fact that he's more than willing, depending on, like, if it's like if he has to, like, he's more than willing to, like, reveal his identity to save a life. He probably wouldn't hesitate. But as Alfred in the movie mentions in The Dark Knight, you have to endure. They'll hate you for it, but that's the point of being Batman. He can be the outcast. And it's like, I really wish they had something like that in these older films, and maybe so much in like the Snyder films. But it's like they kind of hammer it home. It's like, you have to, when you have like a secret identity, by and large, and possibly just maybe it depends, maybe it's like what you're willing to endure, because like Batman is a symbol, and when the city and the symbol of hope, and when the city loses that, then they won't have nothing else, and it will really result in chaos. Because I mean, that's what I enjoy about Batman. It's like, when moments like this, it's like he will like go far and beyond. Even if he has to damn his whole entire secret identity, he will like sacrifice himself if it means like helping his fellow man. But of course, like he goes out and he's not being heard, so he goes out behind scenes, taking out as much of the goons as he can, because he's like full Batman mode at this point. Damn the secret identity. But it was too late to do anything about Dick Grayson's family. So he decides to take him on, just like in the comics, take him on as as a guardian, because and of course he's like filled with revenge now, because like Two-Face killed his family, so now he's taking it upon himself, just like in the comics, to like if you ever, or at least in the animated series, he like it mentions in the 2-part episode about like Robin's origins, is that when the actual killer of his family is revealed, he made him Robin to like, or at least decide to stop the bad guy himself, so Dick doesn't have to either make a terrible choice or ease his pain, because he doesn't want what pain he went through when he was on his trip to learn how to be Batman. He doesn't want to Dick or any other his future proteges to have to go through that to make it. That's why Dick Grayson is always the happy one of the, or at least the more jokey one of the Batman family, because he doesn't have, I mean, he went through a tragedy, but he is like, aside from maybe Tim Drake, I think him and Tim Drake is like the only two that didn't really have or at least they have tragic, backstories, but the only ones, by and large, that actually overcame that in a healthy way compared to the others. I mean, to some extent, even Batgirl, but it's touchy here and there. It depends on the writers how they write Batgirl. Is like she either gotten over or it still kind of lingers in the back of her mind. But by and large, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake is probably the only, ones in the Batman family that actually got through their trauma in a healthy way. So, Dick Grayson is hanging around a little bit, and like, Riddler in his full Riddler getup, comes in on Two-Face's hideout. He figured out Two-Face hideout. Of course, he's smart, and brokers a deal with him. Saying like, I'll help you kill Batman if you help me, rob some places so I can fund my project. Because he wanted to mass produce the Enigma Tech box so he can siphon off the intelligence of the Gothamites, so he can like, not only be smarter, be the most, the smarter one in the city, and probably eventually the world, more than likely. He can also take on a lot of like, high society people's, bank codes and like, other secrets in their minds. So he can be like, the big man on top. He has the knowledge, and like the Riddler, knowledge is everything. And eventually, him and Chase goes to this, because after Enigma is becoming like this big thing now, he's, when he's showing off his, the first, opening of his box, you can see like, he groomed his hair a bit. He's still obsessed with Bruce Wayne, even to the point where he's starting to look his, going the same hairstyle as him. He's, wearing glasses like him. He's dressing like him. Now, that's not a bad choice, but it's the fact that he still doesn't exude. If he wants to be this person, the one drawback on Jim Carrey's, performance of this is that he didn't go the route, as from what I've seen, like, other people's takes on this a long time ago, at least, especially like acting, directors, the way they pointed out like the performance of Jim Carrey's role as Edward Nygma. If he's taking on this role where he's obsessed with Bruce Wayne, he wants to be Bruce Wayne, and to the point where he's dressing like him and getting the same hairstyle like him, he needs to start acting like him. That's another thing. He's still behaving like Edward Nygma, and that route Jim Carrey should have shifted, or should have chose. Maybe he, looking upon it, after the fact, maybe he probably would have said, or at least thought about it after the fact. But it is what it is. But that's something that he probably should have chosen to like really show it off, because he's a great actor. And, that something that should have been like, Joel should have maybe pointed out to him. Maybe like, if you, doing this, you need to like really behave like what Bruce Wayne would have been, confident, stand up straight. And because at certain points, he kind of like still like, not hunches, but he's kind of like leans in a way, very awkwardly. He's still behaving like he was when we were first introduced to him. But then of course you get the first, I think this is the first big movie I've ever seen Drew Barrymore in, because he plays one of the hench girls of Two-Face. I didn't even recognize her at first. I think it was this and the opening of the first Scream movie where we first really see Drew Barrymore. She didn't really like rise to stardom until like the first Charlie's Angel movies, and then 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler, where she like really shined. But But Drew Barrymore is amazing. I love Drew Barrymore. She's just like the cute, girl next door kind of attitude. I really dig Drew Barrymore. She's so good. I love Drew Barrymore, um, especially in Charlie's Angels. Check out I still get a lot of views from my Charlie's Angels review. So check that out. Eventually, I need to do the sequel, Full Throttle. But check out my Charlie's Angels review and my thoughts on that. But anyway. He clearly, like, while Bruce is investigating, he's like, thanks to the hench girl, she turns the machine back on so that it can, like, get inside Bruce's mind, so Nigma can gain Bruce's secrets. It wasn't until like a little bit later when he figured out that, oh, he's also Batman. Thanks for me spying into his psyche. And this is like a nice little play on throughout the film. It's like, I don't think anybody really gravitated, or at least latched onto, because some of the ridiculousness of this film, they kind of like, the nuance got lost, behind all that, goofiness. But with Dr. Chase, who is a psychiatrist, who was supposed to, get inside a person's mind in the legitimate, normal way, while Nigma, using the Nigmatech box, is pretty much just infiltrating and kind of in a perverse way of getting inside a person's mind to gain their secrets, instead of being a willing candidate. And I think that is something I don't think anybody even touched on. I don't think, like, after rewatching this right now, I just dawned on me, like, there's like a play on, like, getting inside, a person's mind that I really wish they kind of like brought that theme up to the forefront. I really wish Joel Schumacher really did that. But I don't know. I don't think anybody, like, I'm pretty sure there has to be a few people that, acknowledge this fact. But I just now acknowledge this fact. So I really wish it was played up a little bit more. Of course, then Two-Face breaks in. He gets impatient because he wants to, kill the bat. So he's robbing like Nigma's little ball, and trying to hopefully lure Batman out, which he does. And you get the little gift moment where it's like, there's a few gift moments that sprung from this movie, and it's like one from Edward Nigma. It's like, his interest was good, your interest was good, his was better. And of course you get to see the Batman guy. Batman, yeah. Oh, and it's like, was it like one of the writers of Batman? One of their wives, I think Bill Finger. Maybe it was Bill Finger or the other guy. I'm pretty sure it was Bill Finger's wife, who's one of the reporters, and she's like one of a goofy extra herself. It's like, oh, here comes Bruce Wayne, Brucey. It's like, oh my God, these extras. And I thought like the extras in like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies was like extra, but wow, these people take the cake. But it's like, you get the Batman guy, and like, of course, Batman, kicks their ass. We could like stunt double. Even then, there's one moment where you see like Batman barely did much to one particular guy as he's trying to chase down Two-Face at the elevator, and it's like, one dude's trying to take a swing. He ducks underneath them, and the dude just flips over and falls out of frame. It's like, dude, it's like, you can see there's certain rare moments where you get from certain films where you see like certain, especially when it comes to fighting movies, or at least movies with fighting in it, where you see like certain extras. If like a person's fighting like a group of people, they kind of like it's kind of like in the first Mortal Kombat movie where it's like Johnny Cage does like a move and the guy doesn't fall down in the appropriate time, and it's like, it's kind of like certain extras like that where they kind of fall out of frame when they don't see anything connect to them. It's just like moments like that. It's kind once you see it, it's hard to miss. Kind of like that little smudge on Jack Nicholson's neck when he's revealing himself as the Joker in Batman '89. Once you see it, you can hardly miss it moving forward. But anyway, Batman, as he's trying to chase down, like, I guess in like some kind of like a sewers pipe or something, I don't know, in some kind of abandoned construction site area underneath the streets, and it falls into Two-Face's trap that somehow he set up perfectly, you know, and you try to set back fire. Batman has some kind of tech that makes his cape malleable to, like, fire retardant, and he hops out of there, upsetting Two-Face, and he starts blowing up random parts of the area, trying to bury him. And then in comes Dick Grayson, dressing up in his it's proto Robin suit, but it's like his Flying Grayson outfit from the circus, and upsetting Batman. Typical Batman move, where it's like he's getting rescued and he doesn't like appreciate it, as well as he should. And he's chastising Dick for not staying away, even though when eventually he finds out that he's Batman after busting into his Batcave. He wanted Dick to stick to, like, being like a college student, he's a normal person. He doesn't want him in his life, and like Dick's not having it. He wants to be part of this, mostly because he still wants to go get revenge on Two-Face, and it's kind of glaringly obvious towards Bruce that he's not bringing the foe. Not only is dangerous, he's still on that revenge kick, and he can't have a psychic like that. But then, like, Alfred mentions, like, you of all people should understand where he's coming from, and unlike you, he has you to guide him properly. And then, of course, like, you get the moment where he gets, goes back, meet up with Chase at midnight, as scheduled, and she tells him, like, oh, I'm loving Bruce, I'm sorry, like, because she was like obsessed with, Bruce Wayne and Batman kind of situation. Kind of like the way, like, Kristen Dunst, Mary Jane, was obsessed with Peter and Spider-Man at the same time. She later finds out that, that they're one and the same, but this makes them happy. But then once they, the villains find out Bruce Wayne is Batman, ironically, this is on Halloween for Day of All Days, that they break into the Wayne Mansion, blow up the Batcave in like a hilarious scene by Jim Carrey, and of course, Harvey keeps flipping the coin until he lands on tails, until he gets the chance to just go ahead and shoot Bruce, which he ends up nicking him and knocking him unconscious. But he's stopped by the Riddler. One of my favorite quotes out of the film: "If you kill him, he won't learn nothing." So they kidnap Chase. He's revived by Alfred, and they investigate the clues that's been left out throughout the film, and they ascertain that each one's representing a number, and the number can easily represent a letter, and then they come to the conclusion that it's spelling out Mr. Enigma, or mystery, or Mr. E, or mystery, or what's the name of mystery? Enigma, Mr. Enigma, Edward Enigma, because the Riddler cannot help himself when leaving clues, even when he could easily get away with a lot of his crimes. He cannot help himself. And that is mentioned in the Batman anime series, that he cannot help himself. He's like a compulsion, pretty much. So Robin, full blown Robin costume. Even though Joel Schumacher is like obsessed with nipples on costumes and like glorified ass shots, I don't hate the Robin costume, honestly. I can definitely do without the nipples, but by and large, it's not like, you don't get to, see like, Robin and like, it's kind of like, in like the Teen Titans TV show where it's like he's actually got pants on, or at least a leotard or something like that, instead of like a full blown like short boy shorts or something like that, like you see in like in the 60s, or in like the old school Batman comics during like the first iteration of like Robin and Batman. So I really dig this costume. It's probably like, one of my favorite on-screen Robin costumes, to be honest with you. I think like maybe the Titans show did do like the costumes more justice, but I have a soft spot for the Joel Schumacher Robin costume. Batman takes the bat plane while Robin takes the bat boat out to the Enigmatech facility, and somehow they build this gigantic hourglass Enigmatech box thing, and they set up to be like a big laser. It looked like, it kind of reminds, the place kind of reminds me, at least some of the place kind of reminds me of the Nickelodeon studios in a way for some reason. But they play Battleship trying to like, take down Robin and Batman, and they managed to get onto the island, and Robin gets captured while trying to take down Two-Face, but he didn't, ultimately chose not to kill him. But him and Chase, the ultimate decision, just like in Spider-Man 1, Batman had to choose between saving his partner and saving the woman he loves. But then you get the kind of cool little twist where it's like, I got a rule for you, just to stall him. It's like, I see what I see. To me, darkness is clear as daylight. What am I? Please, you're as blind as a bat. Exactly. And then knocks down, like, busted up, Enigma's little a machine, and it's kind of like reversing, the mental energy that he stole from people. And Batman jumps into the floor that's like open up like a trap door to like a big death trap below to save Robin and Chase. And by the way, it wasn't until maybe the last two viewings of this because I was so confused, like the way it was shot. Maybe I wasn't paying attention as a kid, but the way it was shot, it always seemed like when he's pressing the button on his cane to open up the trap door, it looked like he's opening up. He's looking like it's like it doesn't look like they fall in the same hole. But until Batman dives in, it looks like a one big giant hole. But because the way it was shot, it seems like there's one small hole underneath Chase and one small hole underneath Robin, and he's diving into this big hole all of a sudden. And like it took me it wasn't until the last couple of times maybe I've seen this until it finally, I actually saw it's a giant hole. It's a legit giant hole that they both fallen through, and it's kind of like two sliding doors, big sliding doors that I'm witnessing being opened up, and they fall into and leads into one big giant hole. That's what I'm seeing. And forgive me, it took me like a long time before I actually see that, and it was always bugged me as a kid. It did not make any sense to me until like years ago, at the last couple of times I've seen this. Batman saves both of them, and of course he tricks Harvey after, just like in the animated series where he tricks Harvey into trying to flip his coin, and he tosses random coins in the air so he get confused and he falls off and falls to his death. Now, because I thought like Joel Schumacher, like I forgot about this because I thought Joel Schumacher was the only one that actually did not show Batman killing anybody. But yeah, he technically, even his version of Batman inadvertently killed people. And it's like, and I think in a way it's like keeping Robin from being tempted into killing him. So I'm going to take it's like he's taking the burden off of Robin's soul in a way, so his soul won't be tainted by the act of getting blood on his hands. So he's taking that off of Robin's hands, and I think that was cool. I thought that was really cool, And I wish that was brought to the forefront so everybody can acknowledge that, because I'm pretty sure maybe a small minute people probably picked up on that. And of course, Chase visits Nigma and Arkham Asylum. He's completely whacked out of his mind thanks to like the whole reverse polarity he went through. And of course, when Batman goes to Nigma to try to cuff him, or essentially, Nigma's kind of losing it, and he's seeing like a big bat flying to him, and it's like now he's thinking he's Batman in the asylum, completely lost his mind, even more so. But just a side note, because I will regret if I don't mention this now, because it just dawned on me to bring it up. There's like a cut when like Bruce Wayne, when he's like that Joel Schumacher cut out of the film. I kind of wish they would have included it. Maybe I was expecting it on HBO Max, but even then they didn't include it. There's like a deleted scene where like Bruce is like when the time when he's recalling himself as a little kid, stealing his father's journal and falling through the cave and seeing his bat flying towards him. There's a different shot where like the bat is like a legit giant ass fucking bat towering over. You can at least look it up, the image on. You can Google the image so you can see for yourself. It's towering over this kid. They kind of, I guess, cut that out because I guess it was a little too scary for this kid-friendly movie, so they took it out. But you can easily look it up. Some days I think I agree of them leaving it out, and some days I kind of wish they included it. Is to pick your poison on that kind of situation. I cannot say for certain whether I like it or not. I could have easily gone either way. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole new appreciation of this film. But even when the stuff that I pointed out, how like it's like certain nuances that I found in the film probably would not make it any better than it already is. It's still like just like a fun, dumb movie, and it's obviously not on the level of Batman 89 or Batman Returns or even the Nolan films, but it's like a movie that's fun. It's kind of like, a fun, dumb popcorn movie, and it's also a kind of movie that you turn on and while you're doing something else. You can just have it on. It's a good movie for kids to this day. And much to most people's chagrin back in the day when they make that completely roundabout about face towards kid friendly because moms freaked out over Batman Returns. So at least back in the day they freaked out over Batman Returns. Yeah, Batman Forever. It's fun to watch. Let me know in the comments below what you still think if you gotten back to Batman Forever recently. What do you think of Batman Forever? Does it still hold up for you? Do you still have fun? Or is it just so bad that you can't really stand it, honestly? I'll see you guys next week when I cover Batman and Robin. And then after that, I will cover Lego Batman to at least wrap up this year of all the Batman films that I intend to cover. There obviously are more, but I'll probably handle that at some point, maybe next year. I don't know when, but eventually. And yeah, thank you all for joining me. I'll see you guys next week. Oh, later on this week, I will probably tomorrow or maybe the next day, I will be covering a couple of Christmas Hallmark movies or Lifetime movies for starting like some Christmas theme movies to spoiler review for. Of course, there will be eventually the classic ones like Die Hard and Home Alone, but I want to include some Hallmark Christmas movies. I want to like really talk about just to make it a part of my theme of Christmas theme month, or at least 2 months or month and a half, because I'm including November technically. But look forward to that. So take care, have a good night, and yeah, be safe.